Hey, Weather Warriors, I am back in the weather forecasting saddle because we got a severe weather outbreak, potentially significant one here in the southeastern and eastern United States as we head towards Friday and Saturday, and potential for a snowstorm and ice storm here in the north central, Midwest, and northeastern United States. So, we're going to talk about tornado potential, snow potential, much more in this video. But before we begin, click the subscribe button if you like daily forecast extreme weather event breakdowns just like this, much more detailed and long range than you would see on TV. And we have a huge, fast growing weather enthusiast community. So jump on board and we'll get right into this. So the first half of this video, I'm going to go over the severe weather, and then the second half we'll look at that snowstorm. So this is the thing we're going to want to watch here. This is kind of early Friday morning. Now, what you want to look at here is all of this flow here. There's a trough coming in, and there's a ton of flow on the back side. So this trough is really going to strengthen and deepen as it moves to the east. So the timing of this will be critical, and when this happens, this could blow up some thunderstorms here like a fuse in the southeastern United States. Friday, as we head towards Friday, this is 7 p.m. Here's your jet streak. It's oriented from the northeast to the southwest. Now, this is good if you're not into the severe weather, because this can limit things just a bit because it's positively tilted. The dynamics are a little bit weaker, not as much upper level support, but it just doesn't matter a whole heck of a lot when you got this much flow and this deep of a trough. There's still going to be severe weather out ahead of this thing on Friday for the south central United States, would be my prediction. And again, this is going to kind of limit the tornado outbreak potential, at least early on, and severe weather threat early on. But I think overnight on Friday, things are really going to start to ramp up as this thing moves to the east, and you're going to see this trough really get its act together. It kind of already is, but overnight on Saturday into Sunday, and we'll have to look at the European for that. That was the NAM we were looking at. We'll go out and do the day on Saturday and show you where the main show is here. As we head towards Saturday, this is going to be around 1 p.m. This is the European computer model, which has been doing pretty well here. And you can see that that tilt here is now northwest to southeast. So we've got a negatively tilted trough here. And look at all that flow now. All that flow is underneath and out ahead of this trough. There's plenty of divergence, and you see that wrapping kind of occurring. This is ideal for upper level lift. The atmosphere is kind of stretching out way up high. It's going to cause some lifting at the surface. Plenty of flow. We're talking 100 knots in some areas right here. So more than enough. All you really need for severe weather, depending on if you have enough instability, is 40, 50, 60 knots. So we're doubling that at least here for parts of the southeastern United States. Plenty of energy up in the upper levels. And this really could extend up into the Midwest. We'll go over that in a second. But yeah, this is looking pretty good for severe weather. Not so good if you don't like it. But as you head towards Sunday or Saturday night into Sunday, this thing kind of moves to the east. It will start to become a baroclinic system at the surface, and it essentially means it's going to shear out. It's going to kind of spread out, and the low pressure system will kind of weaken. So when you get really tight circulations, that acceleration really increases, but when it kind of dies out, it spreads out. It's kind of what's going on at the surface, and so you'll get it kind of a weaker setup on Sunday. If anything, it'll be out in the Atlantic Ocean, but I don't expect things to really be too bad for the East Coast, but still I got to watch really all of this area. So what we're going to do now is look at the moisture, and this is really important as well, because we got plenty of moisture to work with, and we can kind of see where the storms will line up, because we clearly have enough wind shear and upper level support. Then we got to overlap that with the moisture. So where we get the overlap is where the best chance for severe weather is going to be, and we'll look at instability as well. These are all the key ingredients we need, and you can see, generally speaking here, you're going to want 60 dews plus. There's more that goes into it, but you can definitely see this 60 dews line. This is something you're going to really want to watch. It's your main gradient right there. Got a decent front out ahead of this thing. So here's your low pressure system right here in northern Oklahoma. You can see a nice front kind of extending up here. Pretty cold up here, so I don't think you're going to get severe weather up there. Not enough moisture as well. even though there is a front up there. And, if it was summer, there'd probably be some severe weather up there. But your main front down here, okay, that's where your best bet for severe weather is going to be, where that moisture is pooling along it, and that upper level energy is kind of up in this area, your best intersection. That's where your best bet for severe weather is going to be. This is Friday at 7 p.m. So really out ahead of this thing, kind of in this region right here, that's where your best chance for severe weather is going to be. You got south winds at the surface and south along the front, maybe south-southwest. We're going to want to keep that in mind as well. As we head towards, overnight, this will move to the east and really get going, I think, as we head towards Saturday morning, and potentially some redevelopment as well on Saturday. And this is going to be mostly a squall line. I'll go over that in a second. But here's your front. Your best bet for severe weather around Friday night and Saturday morning going to be in Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, kind of that area right there, and maybe even Alabama as well. So pretty good signal for severe weather there. And you obviously see the instability is pretty strong as well. Or not really strong. I take that back. It's really not that strong at all. It's meaning the wind shear, but the instability here on, there's a little bit up here in parts of Kansas. Sometimes on the back side of these lows on the north side, you'll get a little pocket of instability. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a couple of isolated severe storms on the northwest side here, but mostly isolated, nothing crazy. Your best bet's going to be up here in this region. Now, you might think, there's instability down here in the Gulf. Not that anyone lives down there, but the upper level energy is to the north. So your best bet of severe weather will be kind of up in this region right here, where that overlaps with the jet stream. This will move to the east, kind of moves, the instability kind of crashes to the south. But when you get weak instability, if you have really strong wind shear up above, that can kind of help keep things going. Instability is essentially your buoyancy for your thunderstorms. It gives you your cumulus cauliflower type clouds with the warmer air at the surface, cooler aloft. So you get that kind of lift. But because the upper levels have such strong wind shear, the wind shear actually blows the updrafts or the precipitation away from the updrafts, so the updrafts can keep building. And so even if you don't have the strongest of updrafts, that wind shear will kind of help keep them going. And so sometimes wind shear will be a nice offset. So that will help keep things going. Now, significant tornado parameter, we'll just look at that real quick. Yeah, you can see it's actually pretty good. You look at this, we'll go into the south central United States on Friday, and we'll look at Saturday because that's going to be the real impressive day. You can actually see the significant tornado parameter is above a 1 in some of these areas. So there is a heightened threat for tornadoes. But like I said, what I think is going to happen, if you look at the upper levels, go to 500 millibars here, see how they're out of the southwest, the south-southwest. Then you look at the front here at the surface. It's also kind of out of the south-southwest. It's almost right along what the upper levels are. Now, what does that mean? Well, what it kind of means, generally speaking, and also the front orientation is right along the upper levels. Now, the south winds out ahead of it are a little bit more to the southeast. So that could add some directional shear, some rotation up in the atmosphere, the vorticity that can enhance the tornado potential, supercell potential. But because of this front orientation, and it's kind of oriented along the 500 millibar jet streak, what I think is going to happen is that flow is going to kind of train up the front. And so you're going to get storms that just kind of line up the front and train up the front. And really that's going to cause is squall line potential, which actually lowers the tornado threat. There's going to still be some tornado threat, but I would say it's more of a slight risk on the day on Friday. So because of that, you're going to get more of a squall line. I would suspect you'd see a big line, a firecracker of storms that blow up and kind of merge together. And that will happen overnight. It's a very fast-moving system. That also usually is a good sign of strong forcing. And so you have a big squall line that moves through that area overnight, south-central United States. Now let's look at the day on Saturday. So we already looked at, well, let's look at that again. So Saturday, you can look at this upper level piece that comes through. It's a little bit, it's really rocking itself. Southwest flow now here in the day on Saturday. We'll look at the low levels here and look at the dew points on the day on Saturday. And you can actually see the day on Saturday, you got even more southeasterly winds. That flow now is crossing the front. Okay, the crossing that front. And so I think your best chance for tornadoes is going to be on the day on Saturday, kind of up in this region right here where it crosses the front. You got plenty of moisture digging into that region. You got even more instability. There's going to be some potentially, I would say, obviously it's not out yet, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a moderate risk, and even a moderate risk for tornadoes out in that region if storms can kind of stay a little bit isolated, which would be more likely, I think, on Saturday. There could be a pretty serious tornado threat for the southeastern United States. Thunderstorms potentially as far north as Illinois, maybe even Ohio, Missouri, and Tennessee. You can see those 60 dews all the way up north. Kind of cold just north of that warm front, or that front up there, and you can see that really strong temperature or that moisture gradient. Usually when you get a look like that, your tornado threat isn't all that strong up there. It's usually kind of cold. The storms get undercut. So really anything up there I would say is more isolated, severe weather, maybe some just general thunderstorms. But nonetheless, pretty crazy for this time of year. Pretty crazy. So this is going to be Saturday at 7 p.m. You can see this low pressure system now, really strong, but it's going to start weakening after midday, late evening Saturday. It's going to start to shear out and kind of wind out and become more widespread. And when it shears out, it generally weakens. It becomes more widespread, but it usually weakens. So severe weather threat will start to diminish. Still pretty strong, though, at this hour here, all the way across that kind of region right there in the southeastern United States, from Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, up into Kentucky. And then obviously this moves east even overnight on Saturday. Still plenty of moisture out here all the way up into Virginia. And if you look at the low-level jet, we'll have to check that out. This is kind of delivering our moisture and shear as well. You really can see Saturday here, Friday evening, 7 p.m. Saturday morning at around 1 a.m. This thing really gets cranking. The low-level jet's the strongest after dark. And when you get that strong low-level jet, that increases the severe weather, widespread severe weather, all hazards, especially if you have instability. Very strong here. We're talking 70 knots. Just astronomical here for the south central United States. Friday night going to be pretty intense. This thing moves to the east, and this is absolutely insane. You got a low-level jet. Some areas showing 80 knots in there, so that is just incredible. So you don't have to have a whole heck of a lot of instability when you have something like this. And that's really going to add to the wind shear and tornado potential. Hail, wind, tornadoes, very likely in that region, especially as you get towards the southeast part of that region. And very strong as we head towards Saturday at 1 p.m. Starts to lose its grip, kind of reorganizes just a little bit in the Carolinas as we head towards Saturday night. So could still see some pretty strong storms in the Carolinas and Georgia Saturday night, but pretty crazy nonetheless. This is going to be a pretty crazy event. So let's quickly look at the winter storm and just the general look to this thing. But like I said, this is mostly a video for the severe weather. Now, what I'm going to show you here is the NAM, because it does show that rain to snow look. And, this is going to be Friday at 7 p.m. Storms actually fire in Oklahoma and Texas a little bit before then, but I think things really start to get going as this trough strengthens and becomes negatively tilted as this thing moves to the east. You can see the low pressure system there, your cold front, right along this temperature gradient, and your warm front up there, and you can definitely see along and north of that warm front is where your rain to snow is going to be, and there's actually ice potential. So there's potential for some ice. All models have been showing this for the Midwest and central U.S. and even parts of the northeastern United States, and it's been pretty consistent. Now, ice is extremely tough to nail down in terms of track, so the track of this is going to change up to the last minute. Ice corridors can be just a few miles wide. Very tough to forecast that type of stuff, but I would suspect that you would see a nice little corridor of ice, potentially a quarter, half inch in some areas. And so anything really over a quarter inch is it's pretty sketchy. Now, areas to the northwest, even farther northwest, you got a nice band of snow. Now, it doesn't look like a classic blizzard by any means. This is more of a severe weather type of event with a kind of a baroclinic zone, just kind of a northwest or northeast to southwest baroclinic zone. And really, for the most part, I wouldn't suspect with this type of look a serious winter storm. I wouldn't even call it major, but I would definitely It's right on the line, though, between moderate and major. Either way, going to be a nice little system that moves through the central, north, central, midwestern United States and the far northeastern United States. But I'm not saying this is going to be major quite yet. 6 inches in some areas, absolutely, but I don't think it's going to be anything close to, over a foot or anything like that. So that's the NAM. We'll quickly look at the GFS. GFS is a little bit squirrely with this thing. You can actually see it's a little bit further south, kind of weak, spread out. NAM and European has been a little bit more consistent and a little bit better with this system. So I'd actually trust that one a little bit more. We'll look at the European computer model real quick. You can see the storm system actually moves pretty similar to the NAM, a little bit farther south. So you can see this nice, the European computer model is pretty impressive with that backside snow event. So it looks pretty good. You can see some decent ice potential for the Michigan area, even out to Illinois. And then your rain to snow line is going to be farther north. So your snow threat isn't going to be overly strong for folks out ahead of this area. Your best bet's going to be on the back side, the northwest side of the system, and even west side. That's where your coldest of air is going to be. As we head towards Sunday here at 1 a.m., this thing tracks into the lakes. And you can see on the back side here in Wisconsin, very heavy snowfall rates. Here's your severe weather line out ahead of this. All hazards possible. But I do think that the tornado threat is going to be the best out here. And as this thing moves to the east, it will weaken. And not weaken, the threat for tornadoes will weaken. And the biggest threat will be mostly wind for the most part. This is going to be Sunday now. Sunday around lunchtime, or a little bit before then, around 6 a.m. actually. And then you can see ice out ahead of this thing. Far northeastern United States, ice and snow. And for the most part, this stays well off into the northern United States. This area has been getting pretty hammered quite a bit in Canada, and the northern U.S. as well. But the warm air has really won out for the most part for the east half of the United States. So I think that trend will slowly start to move to the south, but as we head towards late month, and there is some indication that that's going to happen, but this is going to be mostly a rain event and severe weather event for the east half of the United States. Storms, maybe even all the way up into New York, but I suspect that's going to be mostly rain and isolated, embedded, weak thunderstorms. Your main threat for severe weather will be in the Carolinas. But nonetheless, that moves to the east. Let's look at the snowfall amounts real quick on the old European computer model. And you can see, so this is an old storm. Ignore that. You can see a general swath here of 6 to 12 inches. European obviously is a much more impressive look, and that's going to be for Wisconsin. But overall, it's mostly a 5 to 10 inch event for most areas in the core of that system. It's really pretty much 5 to 10 inches, and then areas just to the north and south, nothing much at all. Because I think there's going to be dry air on the north side, and there's going to be a lot of warm air punching north very rapidly on the south side. So there's going to be a serious gradient cutoff with this type of system. And so really folks in the core of this thing, not going to differ a whole heck of a lot from areas to the north and south. So you really want to just kind of end up in the zone for the most part with this type of system. But yeah, 5 to 10 inches by the European computer model. And then the NAM's not quite all the way out there yet, but it also shows a decent amount of snowfall. Again, nothing major in my books, but I would say a good winter snowstorm. You can see the NAM is a lot more narrow with this band. And with these types of systems, they are pretty narrow. And I do think the NAM has a little better idea on the narrowness of this. These higher res models do a little bit better with, sometimes the European and the global models are a little bit too spread out. We'll have to watch that though. But the banding is looking pretty stout, and it's looking pretty narrow, but still about 6 to 8 inches of snow in that area. It's a little bit farther north, but this is, a little bit far out on the NAM. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that move just a little bit farther south. We'll keep an eye on that. It stays well to the north of the northeastern United States. But overall, this is going to be mostly a severe weather event. Now, we'll look at the freezing rain real quick, as this has been pretty consistent for the past several days on multiple models, and you can actually see the NAM is forecasting over half an inch in that area. So there's going to be an area that I predict that you're going to see a little banding somewhere. This is going to change where you get a half an inch of ice or so. Actually, if you want to know the truth, this is almost an inch on the NAM, so pretty nuts. The GFS is not going to be as strong because it was pretty weak, but you can see, for the most part, nothing terribly crazy, but still quarter an inch, and that actually even moves to the northeastern United States. So suspect you'll get some mixed mode precipitation out here, much more likely than snow. But like I said, there's going to be some areas really within this zone right here that see a quarter inch of ice. Some areas seeing as much as a half inch or so of ice. So I think you'll see at least a winter weather advisory, some winter storm warnings, maybe even a couple of ice storm watches. But I think this is mostly going to be near and below that criteria. But we'll definitely have to watch that. I'll make a video on that in the future. But like I said, the main threat is going to be that severe weather outbreak that could occur in the Dixie Alley, southeastern United States region on Friday and Saturday. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe below. Be releasing more updates in the future, and we'll see you soon.